Chapter 6076. Charlie asked again, "Then how do you usually take revenge when you encounter such a thing?" Steve snorted coldly and said without hesitation, "Of course, the deed will be paid with blood. Let alone anyone who dares to provoke a Rothschild family, even if they dare to provoke a dog of the family, we will never let him go. Overtake each other. There is no one in the world who can bully the Rothschild family and make the family swallow their anger. So far, no one has been born." After saying that, Steve raised his head and looked at Charlie, his eyes instantly a little uncomfortable. "Too comfortable," he quickly said. "Mr. Wade, don't get me wrong. What I said has nothing to do with those of us sitting here, especially you." Charlie curled his lips. "There is something in your words. Does it mean that I bullied you?" Steve quickly said, "No. Absolutely not." As he said that, Steve took advantage of the fact that he was already drunk. So he simply filled a glass of wine, drank it in one gulp, and said with an aggrieved look on his face while the wine was still strong, "Mr. Wade, there are no outsiders here. Let me say this from the bottom of my heart. You really hurt me by asking Helena to go to New York to fight back. It's useless for me to go and pick Helena up personally. That's not what you told me at the beginning. In this way, you said that as long as I help you, after my father was stimulated, I will inherit the position of patriarch. I never expected that you asked Helena to give him medicine. This does not mean you are cheating." Charlie said calmly, "Yes, I was just lying to you." Steve looked at him in astonishment and murmured, Why were you?" Charlie said, "It's very simple, Steve. Because you can't be trusted. From the way I looked at you, I felt you definitely can't keep your word." Steve said aggrievedly, "Mr. Wade, you've got me wrong. I'm really not that kind of person." Charlie smiled and said, "I know exactly what you were planning later. If you were really allowed to successfully inherit the position of clan leader, the first thing you would do is to weaken the brothers who threaten you to the greatest extent, and then wait. After you take full control of the family, drive them out one by one to consolidate your position as the patriarch. The second thing you had to do was to destroy the covenant between us. Because at that time you would have completely stood firm and wouldn't care if I exposed the inside story of Sifang Baozhuang, right?" Steve was stunned, then silently filled a glass of wine and drank it down. Charlie's words made him completely lose his intention to defend himself. Charlie continued at this time, "I always act as a villain first and then a gentleman. If I didn't have to control your father's health, how could you be willing to be shorter than me in front of me today?" Steve was speechless for a moment. Charlie said again at this time, "Steve, I think you and I should be more sincere in the future. There is no point in pretending to be confused or innocent because we understand." Steve nodded a little ashamedly, "Mr. Wade, you are right." Charlie smiled and continued, "Steve, actually, you have an advantage over your father here with me." When Steve heard this, his eyes regained their luster, and he hurriedly asked, "Charlie, sir, I wonder what kind of advantages you are talking about?" Charlie said lightly, "You and I have a direct connection. But your father does not. Whether it is theoretical or physical, you are closer to me. If it weren't for your lack of sincerity, why would I sacrifice the near and far and ask Helena to establish an indirect connection with your father for me that requires a middleman?" After saying that, Charlie said again, "Look, if you are the owner of a supermarket, and you find that the person living opposite you did not choose to come to your house to buy something, but instead went to a farther block to buy something, you cannot find fault with the buyer, but you have to find the problem within yourself, or someone else has it. You don't, either everyone agrees that your price is higher, or the price is the same but your service is too poor. If you don't find the problem yourself, you can't stop the customer and ask him why he doesn't come to buy from you, right?" Steve nodded repeatedly in shame, "Mr. Wade, you are right. I will be 100% sincere to you in the future and will never hide anything." Charlie smiled and said, "You can observe it." After that, Charlie said again, bringing the topic back to the direction of finding someone, asked him, "By the way, you just said that you want the other party to pay with blood. But this is China, not the United States. If you, the Rothschild family, really want others to pay with blood, you can't directly send someone here to run wild. Steve was warned by Charlie. Although he was still frightened, he also wanted to get close to Charlie, so he said without any cover, "Mr. Wade, this kind of dirty work is tiring. We definitely won't do it ourselves. Otherwise it might lead to diplomatic disputes or public opinion crises. We usually like to ask outsiders to do this kind of thing for us. You see, those members of criminal groups are not afraid of anything all day long." Gangs. Charlie thought of the criminal groups he had wiped out in Mexico before, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that your family would also cooperate with criminal groups." Steve said hurriedly, "It's not really a cooperation, it's just a simple use. This is not a secret in the United States. After all, every criminal group makes money by selling drugs to the United States. Don't look at them. They can kill innocent people and act arrogantly, but in their eyes, the United States is their god of wealth. In order to ensure that goods and money enter and exit the United States without causing trouble, they will be willing to do things for the Americans." Charlie nodded, smiled, and said, "It seems that the Rothschild family is indeed very skillful." After that, Charlie asked him, "Since the person you are looking for disappeared in Aurus Hill, do you want me to help you find clues?" When Steve heard this, he said happily, "It would be great if Mr. Wade is willing to help. Your connections in Aurus Hill are definitely incomparable to us. As long as we have your help, I believe we will be able to find the clue soon." "Thank you so much, Mr. Wade." Charlie smiled and said to Steve, "Don't be so polite. Eat first. After eating, I will take you to a place. Maybe the clues you want to find would be there." As he said that, Charlie deliberately asked Orville, "Orville, do you think so?" "Yeah." Orville smiled and nodded repeatedly, and then asked Steve, "Mr. Rothschild, are you afraid of dogs?" "Dogs?" Steve didn't know why Orville asked himself this. But he still answered very firmly, "To be honest with Mr. Hong, my favorite animal is a dog. Dogs are such loyal animals that few people don't like them." Orville smiled and said, "That's good, that's good. Let's eat quickly and set off after eating."